Indianapolis, Indiana, March 2nd, quarterback Kyler Murray of Oklahoma looks on while sitting out the workout during Day 3 of the NFL Combine at Lucas Oil Stadium on March 2, 2019 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Murray is widely predicted to be selected first overall in the NFL Draft. Photo by Joe Robbins, Getty Images. The 2019 NFL Draft is fast approaching, and the Washington Redskins are studying up top prospects in the class. They've already met with all four of the quarterbacks in the first-round conversation, and they've done some digging on later-round players as well. Ultimately, the kind of quarterback that the Redskins pick depends on how they feel about their current situation. Can Case Keenum start and perform at a high level? Is Alex Smith going to return to football in the next year or two? Is all the Colt McCoy love from the coaching staff more than simple lip service? If the answer to all of the aforementioned questions is no, and if Josh Rosen isn't available, then the Redskins have a need for a quarterback early. The no. 15 pick isn't the best spot to pick a quarterback, as all the ones worth picking that high might be gone. Thus, a trade up the board can't be ruled out for the Redskins. Want your voice heard? Join the Riggo's Rag team. Write for us. With that said, how do the quarterbacks of the 2019 NFL Draft rank, and which ones might be worth the Redskins pick at no. 15. To answer those questions, we put together a top 10 big board for the quarterbacks of the 2019 NFL Draft. It's a class that has its questions, and lacks depth, but ultimately excites. Missed the cut. 15. Arizona State QB Manny Wilkins, 14. Purdue QB David Blau, 13. Fresno State QB Marcus McMaryion, 12. Washington State QB Gardner Minshew, 11. Auburn QB Jarrett Stidham. Page 2. In this quarterback class, being in the top 10 isn't necessarily an accomplishment. Looking at the 2019 quarterback class from a broad view, there might only be one or two surefire starters in the NFL, and the class lacks depth as well. This far in, it's a fight between Ryan Finley and Jarrett Stidham for the last top 10 slot. And Finley barely edges him out. That's more of a testament to how uninspired I was by Stidham's film, than a testament to Finley's traits. That said, Ryan Finley does have some things going for him. On his quest to grab and lock down a backup role in the NFL, Finley's arm strength is below average, but he's not as helpless as some suggest, especially in the short and intermediate ranges. When pushing vertically, his throws lose pace, but closer up, he can fire with more direction. He occasionally shows flashes of ad-lib ability, and he doesn't lose velocity when throwing on the run. While his accuracy can be spotty, he generally hits open windows. Finley's poise, footwork, and experience will give him a leg up in camp battles, even if he doesn't end up being drafted because of his physical limitations. He can improve his ability to work through progressions and his general mental processing in the heat of the moment, and if he enters a situation where he's afforded the time to do so, he can hold a backup role and stay in the league for at least a few years. Page 3. Mobile, Alabama, December 22, Tyree Jackson. Photo by Jonathan Bachman, Getty Images. Tyree Jackson was a historic physical tester at the 2019 NFL Combine. At 6'7", 249 pounds, Jackson logged a 4.59 40-yard dash, a 34.5-inch vertical jump, and one of the best overall Ross scores by a quarterback ever, per Inside the Pylon's Kent Lee Platt. Jackson is simply an outrageous physical specimen, and he adds to his list of rare traits with an incredibly strong arm. His sheer arm strength allows him to drive the ball past the deepest defenders, and he has immense potential as a field-stretching quarterback. That said, Jackson needs to prove he has polish to back up the traits, and he didn't do that at the college level. Jackson's physical traits bring lots of intrigue, but his mechanical and fundamental performance leaves much to be desired. Jackson's footwork is clunky in the pocket, and while his height-speed combination allows him to clearly see the field while manipulating pocket movement, his feet don't always move with his eyes and his arm, and this order of operations issue leads to erratic accuracy to all three levels. That said, Jackson responds to pressure well, and his poise is solid. More from Rigo's rig. Anticipation isn't present with Jackson, who uses his arm strength to drive the ball into open windows, somewhat compensating for time lost. He can be late because of this, however, and he'll need to work on quickening his progression work and improving his depth of understanding, pertaining to the constant movement of throwing lanes. As a thrower, while Jackson has great arm strength, he often qualifies as merely an arm thrower. His motion doesn't encapsulate the ease of throwing a football. Rather, he visibly expends energy and time with his throwing motion, and his tendency to force power onto throws makes him a volatile asset in the pocket. That volatility makes Jackson, for all his upside, a developmental prospect who could be worth a flyer on early or mid-day 3. There's simply too much work to be done to refine him as a prospect, and quarterbacks tall as Jackson often come with mechanical issues that are hard to filter out. But despite all this, Jackson's explosive traits are impossible to ignore, and they could cause him to be drafted higher. After that, his path is dependent on the technical help he gets, and ultimately needs. Page 4 Iowa City, Iowa, September 17, defensive end Anthony Nelson. Photo by Matthew Holst, Getty Images. The gap between Easton Stick and Tyree Jackson is a fairly small one, as both are predominantly developmental prospects with traits to mold, but no sure developmental path in the NFL. Stick, as the successor to Carson Wentz at North Dakota State, produced at a high level with the Bison, logging 8,693 yards, 88 touchdowns, and 28 interceptions over a 4-year span. He also tacked on 2,523 rushing yards and 41 rushing touchdowns in that same span, including 17 rushing touchdowns in his senior season. Stick has a multifaceted game, and he brings the skill set to threaten defenses in multiple ways. But to put himself in a position to threaten defenses at the next level, Stick has considerable development to undergo from a mental standpoint. Stick has the desired athleticism to play quarterback, as well as adequate arm talent. He's able to put some zip on the ball, and while his accuracy is inconsistent, he fires lasers on occasion. He shows anticipation at times, but his desire to see plays out to their full potential can be a two-sided coin, as he'll sometimes wait too long, and pass up multiple opportunities to pull the trigger, as windows close too quickly for him to assess. His lacking arm versatility prevents him from catching up on the time lost. Stick's on-field processing speed must get faster if he is to have an opportunity in the NFL. For quarterbacks, it's important to have a mindset of measured aggression, one where a quarterback is aware of his checkdowns, but also aware of the risk-taking the checkdown poses, pertaining to opportunity cost. Stick tries to be aggressive, but his indecisiveness and his struggle seeing the field in real time hinder his ability to capitalize on downfield opportunities. Sometimes, Stick will hone in on an option too late, and these costly lapses in decision-making lead to momentum shifts in favor of the defense. Stick comes in one spot ahead of Tyree Jackson only because of his size, competitive fire, and his better mechanics. Size doesn't necessarily matter for quarterbacks, but Tyree Jackson is past the danger threshold. In terms of size, it might be hard to develop him, because of natural mechanical issues stemming from his height. Stick, meanwhile, has very good athleticism for his modest size, and his mechanics do not suffer. Stick presents a slightly higher floor, and although his ceiling might not be as high, realistically, Stick might have a better chance to carve out a role in the NFL. Page 50XFORD, MS, September 8, Jordan Tuamu. Photo by Wesley Hitt, Getty Images. After number 6, there's a bit of a drop in the 2019 quarterback class. Past Will Grier, most of the prospects are either developmental projects, or likely career backups in the NFL. Jordan Tuamu of Ole Miss is a bit of both. Tuamu's limitations are clear, both from a faraway glance and from an in-depth look at the tape. Despite having 3 future NFL receivers and another future NFL tight end in his offensive cast last year, he only threw for 19 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. On tape, he's a tad late from a mental standpoint, and he'll predetermine his targets more often than preferable. But if Tuamu can undergo more mental growth in the NFL, and land in a spot where such growth can be catalyzed, he has a chance to be a starter in the NFL, if the cards fall his way. Tuamu flashes all of the requisite traits. He can make some impressive throws with immense accuracy and arm talent, and he has the athleticism and pocket presence to flourish in schemes that utilize mobility in their quarterbacks more often. Regarded as a good leader at Ole Miss, Tuamu could be primed for an ascent in the NFL. He has a floor as a decent backup, and in the right situation, with time to grow, he could be a starter on the cheap side. Page 6 DURHAM, NC, September 29, Daniel Jones. Photo by Streeterletska, Getty Images. This was a tough decision. Many analysts have Jones, at the very least, in their top 4, and some are even higher on the former Duke Blue Devils standout. Jones will undoubtedly go in the first round. NFL teams are enamored with his size, his oft-referenced leadership qualities, his toughness, and the David Cutcliffe factor. All of the aforementioned factors carry varying degrees of weight in the prospect evaluation equation, but how does Jones fare in other areas, more predictive toward professional success? It's obviously a subjective matter, and opinions will vary, but in my evaluation, Jones was not consistent in the areas most predictive for success at the next level. His field vision is subpar, and much of his offense at Duke was quick, rhythm-based passing, and not predicated on his talent. Anticipatory throws from Jones were seriously lacking, and when he was given the opportunity to go through progressions, he sometimes forced throws, raising questions about his decision-making. For some quarterbacks, forced throws can be their best throws. But Jones' slightly above-average linear arm talent limits the versatility of his throwing arsenal, and while he can generate velocity, he generally needs to be undisturbed. Jones is better when his base is solid. On the run, his accuracy can be all over the place, and he has exceptional toughness in the pocket. But his upper body leaves something to be desired as a quarterback, and above the neck, he has some development to undergo as well. Jones handles pressure well with his feet, but not with his arm, or his mind. Jones is a good athlete, and his toughness in the pocket will win over scouts, who ultimately grade the subjects of a very physical game. Jones is a competitor, and he has modest upside. But as it stands, he's a prospect who looks the part, but might not actually be the part. His inability to consistently test the intermediate and deep ranges raises questions about his ability to elevate an offense in the NFL, as well as his willingness to take the correct risks when needed. Although his supporting cast gave him no favors at Duke, Jones' scheme coddled him in some respects, and Jones' performance on an individual level did not earn him the benefit of the doubt. Page 7 AUSTINTX, in November 3, Will Grier. Photo by Tim Warner, Getty Images. He's not Baker Mayfield. He may look a little like Baker Mayfield, but he's not Baker Mayfield. Not even close. That said, however, Will Grier doesn't need to be Baker Mayfield. Just by being Will Grier, he brings some fairly enticing traits to the table. I flipped Will Grier and Daniel Jones twice before ultimately coming to this conclusion. It'll be a hot take in some corners, but when juxtaposing Grier and Jones, I felt I had to give the edge to Grier, for multiple reasons. Grier and Jones are both able athletes and throwers. Neither has a great arm, but they're above average, and both are good athletes as quarterbacks. Between those two trait categories, there isn't much separation. Jones is bigger, but too often, the prototypical quarterback mold can be used as a buffer, when true prospect separation comes from more intangible traits. Greer doesn't necessarily fit the traditional mold as well, but at 6'2", 217, his size is very adequate, and he backs it up with good on-field traits. In the short and intermediate ranges, Greer has solid accuracy, and he has enough arm elasticity to generate velocity, although it trickles out on longer passes. He hits the seams very well, and some of his best throws knife through defenders to reach their target. He also has the ability to hit targets on the run with his athleticism. The ability to succeed outside of structure is there with a Greer, and while his fearlessness can lead to trouble, it ultimately helps him maximize certain opportunities. Greer's system at West Virginia made life a bit easier for him. His throws weren't often anticipatory or predicated on progressions, and in the NFL, he may have to make a transition mentally. The same can be said for Daniel Jones, however, as Jones operated out of the quick game fairly often, and didn't best Greer with his progression work. Overall, Greer seems to be a comparable athlete to Jones, and his traits as a thrower, at this point, ultimately exceed Jones. The two are close, but Greer's aggressive mentally will be easier to build off of at the next level, for teams looking for a potential starter at good value. Page 8 St. Petersburg, Florida, January 19, Brett Rypien. Photo by Julio Aguilar, Getty Images. There seems to be a media-anointed big four this draft season: Kyler Murray, Drew Lock, Dwayne Haskins, and Daniel Jones. All four have gotten round one talk, and all four have gotten considerably more hype than the quarterback prospects behind them. There's one quarterback in the second batch who deserves much more love than what he's getting. And that quarterback is Mark Rypien's nephew, Boise State signal caller Brett Rypien. No, the limited buzz surrounding Rypien isn't a product of name recognition alone. Brett Rypien is his own player, and with his own skill set, he's put together a compelling resume as a potential mid-round pick at quarterback. Rypien doesn't necessarily have the eye-catching traits. He's not overly fast, and he doesn't have the big arm that other quarterbacks do. But while these notes sound derogatory on the surface, Rypien's arm strength isn't a sizable hindrance on tape. He still delivers lasers down the middle, and he's one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the 2019 class. Furthermore, Rypien works through his progressions very quickly, and he stays poised in the pocket. Mentally, Rypien has a case to be the quickest, most competent quarterback in the class. He has a measured aggression that helps him glean value from an offense, while also potentially minimizing risk. His arm isn't great, but don't let his slightly lower upside distract you from his impressively high floor. I have no specific player comparison for Rypien, as I generally try to avoid player comparisons, but I can compare his scenario to that of Kirk Cousins back in 2012. Rypien, to me, looks like a mid-round quarterback prospect who could genuinely start and thrive in the right situation. Make no mistake, the quarterbacks at the top of this class are not sure things. And because of Rypien, they are not untouchable, either. Page 9 Collegee Park, MD, in November 17, Dwayne Haskins. Photo by Will Newton, Getty Images. I don't doubt that Ohio State's Dwayne Haskins has the capability to succeed in the NFL, with the right circumstances in play. But he's not a sure thing as a prospect, and while his floor is relatively high, he doesn't offer the desired upside that's often coveted from first-round quarterbacks. Haskins, mentally, is adept, and he's already an expert when it comes to dissecting the short and intermediate ranges. His accuracy is very good from 0 to 10 yards, and as a distributor, he can lead a team to victory, and keep the offense efficient and on schedule. When things go off schedule, however, Haskins isn't nearly as surgical. His accuracy is less consistent further down the field, and while he occasionally drops good deep passes, he doesn't have the arm strength to drive the ball past deep coverage. As a result, he pushes such passes, and lacks consistent accuracy in those situations. When the pocket collapses, Haskins' other limitations show as well. He's not much of an athlete, and his merely serviceable arm isn't elastic enough to make the needed throws when rolling out. He's mobile enough to manipulate the pocket, but asking him to make the necessary plays in high-pressure situations, and asking him to elevate his game when his supporting cast isn't doing the trick, isn't ideal. With a good supporting cast, Haskins can be a distributor capable of leading his team to the playoffs. But when the competition is higher, and when the best players put their teams over the top, Haskins doesn't have the skill set to suggest he can be that player for a team. He can be a solid starter, and he'll give his team a chance. But in the NFL, winning it all is all that matters. And Haskins, for a first-round pick, might not achieve that goal. Page 10COLUMBIA, Mo, September 8, quarterback Drew Lock. Photo by Jamie Squire, Getty Images. Missouri's Drew Lock is an enigmatic prospect in the 2019 NFL Draft. Some believe he's due to be a bust, while others point to certain traits to suggest he might have a future in the NFL as a starting quarterback. Put me in the latter category. And yet, I'd be the first to tell you that Lock's game needs serious polish that he's not guaranteed to receive at the next level. His footwork needs a complete overhaul, as he has the tendency to wander on his own and throw from an off-balanced base. His footwork is a triple-edged sword. While his mobility helps him keep plays alive, his mental processing crumbles when he wanders, and as a result, bad decisions can be made under pressure. In the NFL, where pressure only comes quicker, Lock will need to solidify his footwork. And if he can do that, he can be a solid starter, with the ability to elevate his team in clutch moments. Lock has excellent arm talent and elasticity, and much of his inaccuracy stems from his footwork. More often than not, when he throws from a balanced base, he's generally accurate, and he shows flashes of anticipation when he affords himself the time to use it. Lock makes some incredible throws with his arm, but his bad habits compound on themselves and force him into bad decisions. If Lock can kick his bad habits, and hone his best traits, he's got immense potential. He's athletic, able to make every throw, and he's a leader who teammates have been known to rally around. In fact, the mentality is a big part of Lock's evaluation. Lock turned around a Missouri football program that was in a bad place 4 years ago. Lock garners rave reviews from teammates, and at the Senior Bowl, his locker room commanding charisma was on full display. Lock has both the physical traits to elevate his team in crucial moments, and the mental traits to give his team an edge and a fire, and his mentality also makes him a very coachable prospect. With much still to learn, coachability could be the key for Lock. Lock's floor is fairly low, with his footwork issues and coinciding mental processing concerns, but if he can sort out his problems, and hone in on his arm talent by maximizing his performance in structure, while also possessing the ability to succeed outside of structure, he offers upside that's almost unparalleled in this class. Almost. Page 11MIAMI, FL, December 29, Kyler Murray. Photo by Michael Reeves, Getty Images. Kyler Murray's stock has taken a wild ride this offseason. Before he had officially committed to football, he wasn't even in the first-round conversation. Even after he did, he displayed more of his non-committal tendencies in a Dan Patrick interview, throwing up red flags about his preparation. Then there was the strange height saga ahead of the 2019 NFL Combine, where everyone seemed to have a prediction about Murray's height. 5'3", 5'6", 5'7", 5'8", 6'1". Kyler Murray ended up measuring in at 5'10", 207 pounds. But it didn't, and shouldn't, matter. Because regardless of his size, Murray might be one of the most talented quarterback prospects in draft history. Murray's intangible questions left some hesitant to anoint him the darling of the 2019 class, but now that he's put the matters of commitment behind him, he's allowed teams to focus on his traits. And now, he's the runaway #1 quarterback in the class, as he should be. Murray has a rare combination of speed, athleticism, and arm talent. He's an electric threat both through the air and on the ground, using his burst and elusiveness to qualify as a scheme-transcendent talent. Murray's arm is also incredibly accurate, rivaling the marks of his predecessor at Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield. Next, NFL Mock 6.0, Redskins get much-needed defensive help. More minor questions about Murray's leadership will be answered inevitably, when one NFL team makes him the face of their franchise later this month. But Murray leaves no doubt on the field, he has the traits to set the league on fire.